Yeah. So essentially, what I want to do today is have a conversation with you, which probably any young Nigerian or African is asking themselves about the United States. So you being the one to shed a little bit of light on, what how life is like in the United States. Um, so I guess let's start from the very beginning. How did you end up in the United States?
That's a good question. Blessing, how did you end up here? So it happened that back home in Nigeria, I was working as a journalist. And, at some point in my career, I felt I needed something better. So by better, I mean maybe better pay and so on. So
Mhm,
one
mhm.
day, I had this uncle of mine who came back from the US, and I wanted to use his network to see if I could get like a better paid job. So when
Okay.
I reached out to him, to see if he can use his connection to, write me a letter of recommendation so I could use it to apply to a better organization and so on. And he said, well, how about you try to apply to the US and see if you get into the PhD program? Because I had already had a master's. And I'm like, okay, I'm talking about job, and now you're talking about something different, further studies. And I felt, oh, that would be a really great opportunity because honestly, I've always wanted to study abroad. And
Mhm.
that has been one of my heart desire. And I've been praying about it as at that time. And I had this strong conviction that I would someday study abroad with scholarship, and when he said that, I felt this is God speaking, like this is it. Maybe this is the time for me to actually do something. And then I applied to North Dakota State University and then wrote the necessary exams because you have to write the GRE and the TOEFL and all of that, wrote the necessary exams. And to go be the glory, I was admitted into I applied for PhD program, but at some point I felt, oh, I just need to be there. So for me to have a better chance of getting admitted, because I understand that the program is very competitive, right? So I wrote to the chair of the department and said, oh, I think I would like to do my master's instead of the PhD program, right? So that was how I got admitted into the PhD program, but into the master's program by merit, anyways. And I think that's it. Now I'm here.
Okay. So that was about getting the place. And how about the scholarship? How was the process for the scholarship? Was it a different process or it was the same thing?
Oh yeah. So for my former school, I'm saying it's my former school because presently I'm doing my PhD in another school. So I think what they do in the Department of Communication is once you have been given admission, it comes with an assistantship, meaning that they're going to cover your tuition, and they're going to pay you some stipend, but then you have to teach in that department. You teach public speaking. So it's more like once you're given admission, you're automatically given the assistantship, you know. But for some programs, it's different. For some program, they make you apply for that assistantship. So
Mm.
that's the difference. So for the Department of Communication, that wasn't the case. But once you're given admission, of course, they know that you are capable of teaching, or you are, more than able to take on the responsibility. And I had a full assistantship because we have both full assistantship and then we have 0.2, which is half assistantship. But I got the full assistantship.
Okay. So like with that assistantship, how many hours were you working with the assistant, and then how many hours were you supposed to be in school learning?
So, well, according to immigration law, I'm only allowed to work 20 hours. So,
Mm.
yes, so I'm not expected to work more than that. If I do, I'm going to be flouting the rule, which should not be. So basically, it's 20 hours.
Do 20 hours a week. I see. So you said something interesting about the merit. So you had your undergrad from Nigeria and your master's. So does that mean that if you're going to apply to come to school to the US, you're better off having either an undergrad or a master's? Because I think other students are trying to come here with straight, I don't know what's the process in Nigeria, but from Zimbabwe, we go to high school, you do 6 years in high school and then you go to university. Is that a better option to just apply to come here with straight from high school? Because it seems like for you, it worked because you had the 2 degrees already in the pocket.
Yeah, so I won't be able to speak to undergraduate level because I didn't go through the undergraduate program here in the US, but I know that in Nigeria, if you want to apply, maybe you want advanced degree, for example, you want the master's or the PhD, and having gotten your first degree, which is your undergraduate degree, you can apply directly to any schools here in the US for your master's or your PhD, regardless of whether you have a master's already in Nigeria. So the master's was just an added advantage for me. It's more or less an added advantage. And it doesn't mean that I was admitted because of that master's that I already had. No, I think there are other factors that play into it. For example, your letters of recommendation, because you're expected to have I think 3 letters of recommendations, and you're expected to have your transcript submitted, and then you have your CV. So it's not just about me having the master's degree before I applied. That wasn't what gave me an edge, but I would say it's also an added advantage. But there are other factors, other variables that play into you getting admission. And also your I think they call it letter of statement of purpose. Yes, I'm forgetting them because I wrote them several years ago. So you have to write a statement of purpose, and what that means is you are going to convince them and tell them why you are the right student for that program. Why are you the best fit? Because they have so many applicants, so many every year, right? So why are you the best fit for that program? So that's something you need to write and convince them that you are the best fit, right? So It's not just about you having a degree. It has to do with so many other things.
All right. So and then you mentioned that you're now working on your PhD. So are you now becoming an academic? Are you going to go back into the industry or?
Oh my God. I get this question a lot. People ask me, hey, what do you want to do with your PhD program? And funny enough, when you tell people that you are doing your PhD program and they go, oh, you want to teach? But that's not it. Not everyone who gets the PhD program wants to teach, right? I have been teaching. I've been in the academia for a long time. So actually, what I want to do with my degree is I'm studying organizational communication. I'm getting my PhD in organizational communication. And what I want to do at the end of my program is I want to go into consulting, right? I want to consult for organizations. I'm interested in, looking at communication issues in organization. And my research area, by the way, my research area focuses on organizational culture, organizational dissent, workplace well-being, and workplace communication. And in the workplace, you cannot not communicate. That's what we do in the workplace. We all communicate, but there is problem with communication in the workplace, especially supervisor-subordinate communication. Sometimes the supervisor might communicate something, but the supervisor might communicate something, but the subordinate or the person they are supervising might, have a different meaning from what they are communicating. So there are so many things to be done in the organization. So in the long run, I want to consult for organizations, as well as I might be doing I might also be teaching maybe becoming an adjunct professor in a school, because I've been teaching like forever. So I love to teach, don't get me wrong. Yeah, I really love to teach, but my primary aim is to consult. I also want to have a communication academy. So that's one of the goals I have. And my plan is to have a communication academy back home, because I know that in Nigeria, communication is key. And I want to be able to set up this academy. And one of the goals that the academy will be doing is to train managers, train leaders, train students, on so many things. There are so many things about communication. It's not just me and you talking. It goes beyond that. So just the peripheral of the goal of my academy, this is what it's going to look like. I hope that answered it.
Yeah, you answered my question, but then you made me have many more questions. So you spoke about going back to Nigeria to start an academy, and one thing I have noticed with with most people who come to the diaspora, they usually come to the, whether it's the US or UK or whatever country it is, having good ideas and wanting to go back home, but then in the end, they actually end up not going back because, I mean, to be honest, life here is good for most people than it is from where we came from in Africa. So have you seen that with other people, and how do you see that being solved? Because I feel like if you go back, that would be a good thing for Nigeria and Africa as a whole. But I feel like Africa is losing many people once they come to the diaspora and not go back.
Honestly, that's a really important question that we all need to be asking ourselves. By we, I'm talking about all Africans, right? Because it looks like there is a brain drain going on right now. People are migrating, people are leaving the soil. We call it Mama Africa. People are leaving our motherland. They're migrating because they see that they have like better, greener pastures outside. And I don't blame them for that, honestly, because when you look back at what is happening right now, there's so many insecurity back home, kidnapping, there is no electricity supply and so on. You can imagine somebody who had a really great business idea and they want to go back home to establish their business and there is no power. They are going to spend a lot. Well, I'm not even talking about manpower. I'm talking about electricity. We don't have that, right? So if these things, if the leadership, I'm not just saying the government alone, but all hands must be on deck. Our leaders must do something in order to ensure that there is a structure, in order to ensure that there is security, because I don't want to go back home and I won't even be able to sleep, right? Because because I asked some of my friends if they are going to go back home at some point. And believe me, some of them said no. And one of the reasons they gave was the problem of insecurity. They said they cannot go home because they are not even sure how secure our motherland is.
Yeah, I like the example that you gave of even just electricity, because when you don't have the basics of electricity or water, then it's almost like you can't do anything once you get there.
You can't. So I believe that our leaders should start thinking ahead. They should start looking into the future, right? These youths are leaving. Those who left are not even coming back because they don't see home as a safe place. So until you make it a safe place for people to actually want to come back to, then they might wake up one day and they would see no one left. So I think it's a really important, it's a very important problem that our leaders should take into consideration.
Yeah. Thanks for that insight. You also mentioned about, you're talking about organizational communication. And, one of the things which happened when I came here is I had miscommunications with people so many times, even when I was speaking English, because there's certain words, we use them to mean certain things, even though it's the same word in English. Did you encounter such things when you also came and gave an experience you can highlight?
Oh, you can say that again. I did actually. So recently, in one of my classes, we actually studied a theory, and the theory was propounded by my advisor. It's called language convergence, meaning divergence. It's a theory. So what that means is you have two people talking and they use the same word, right? That's language convergence. They use the same word.
Okay.
For example, power.
Okay.
Right? We are both let's say we're just using power as a word, but there is a meaning divergence because the meaning I have, the way I see power is quite different from the way you see power. So by the time we say, okay, can you explain what you mean by power? By the time you start explaining it, I'll be like, really? Is that how you define power? Some people define power as resources. Some people define power as, high status and all of that. So yes, I actually encountered situations like that, and I can't really give specific example right now. I cannot provide specific example, but I definitely encountered such problem.
Yeah, that's what about culture shock? Even just culture shock, when you landed in the US, what were some shocking things that you saw that you would want to prepare anybody else who might be coming from, outside?
Great. So one of the cultural shock I got was the weather situation, right? So Nigeria is a place where it gets really hot. And then the first time I landed in North Dakota state. If you know North Dakota, it's a really cold place.
Well, I know North Dakota, but can you explain more? I mean, for people who don't know North Dakota.
So North Dakota, it's in the northern part, of course, of the US. And it's a really, I would say, how to summarize it, it's a really cold state in the US. And then I schooled in Fargo, which is North Dakota State University, Fargo. That's where I schooled. And then I would say it's a really cold place. It snows. And that was my first time of actually seeing snow. I used to watch it on TV, the Christmas event. I would be like, hey, it's snowing and all of that, but I hadn't really experienced that until I stepped my foot in North Dakota. So when I landed first, I landed in Chicago. I was still wearing my winter jacket from Nigeria because I was told that, the airplane is usually cold, so I should wear the winter jacket. So when I landed in Chicago, right, I came out of the plane. People were dressing like nothing was going on. They were wearing their shorts and all. That was in August, though. I looked around. People were looking at me somehow like, who is this person? I wasn't sure why they were looking at me, right? And then a lady close to us standing beside me said, oh, you're new to this area. I said, yes, I just came from Nigeria. And she said, oh, okay, I see. But she didn't tell me why people were looking at me that way. Then I landed at, I took another flight to Fargo, and I had someone who came to pick me up from the airport. And when she saw me, she was like, oh, Blessing, you're welcome. You're wearing this. I'm like, yes, it's cold. Because I was already feeling cold. I said, oh, yeah, it's cold. And she was like, really? This is August, Blessing. This is not cold. Wait till November, then you're going to see what cold is. Well, I didn't really, I'm like, oh, really? I should wait till November. What's going to happen? She said, it's going to snow. And when I was applying, I didn't really check the weather situation. I was like, oh, let me just get into one of the schools, right? I wasn't really particular about where in the United States. So I'll advise whoever is applying to schools in the US, maybe they might want to look up the weather, what the climate or the weather is like in a specific area they are applying to, especially if you're not really used to cold, or maybe you have maybe your body is not attuned to cold. You might want to look it up before you apply. Yeah.
Oh, that's such a good point there. So you ended up going to North Dakota, but how did you even select, that school? Did you have somebody advise you to that one, or it was just a random Google search?
So I mentioned in the beginning about this uncle of mine who came back from the States. So it happened that he also teaches in North Dakota. So he was like, you can just apply to my school and see what happens. And then he didn't tell me that North Dakota is a cold place. Or maybe I did not ask further. I didn't ask, hey, how is North Dakota like? Right? I did not do that. I just applied. And by the time I got there, I saw something different.
I see. I see.
Yeah. But
Nice.
I survived it, right? I survived North Dakota.
Mhm.
It's a wonderful place. I would say it's a wonderful place. Other than the cold, it's a really great place.
Nice, nice. So you did your the first thing you did when you came here was your masters, and you had your masters in Nigeria. So you've experienced doing masters in two different places. What do you think the Americans can learn about how we do our masters in Nigeria? And what do you think the Nigerians can learn about how the masters is done in the US?
Wow, that's a really great question. Well, I think um, the masters, first of all, I would say that the system is different, right? We were colonized by the British. So we had the British system of education. And then when I came to the US, I had to adapt to the American system. And let me tell you the difference. In America, when I came first, the first day of class, after the professor had sent us different articles to study, I started reading the articles. It took me time, anyways, to finish up like 5 of these articles. And when I went to class, it was more like a discussion. Students talk. What do you understand in this article? What stood out for you? So people were just talking. And I wasn't used to that kind of system. I was used to the lecture form system, where the professor comes to class and then lectures you or provide you materials and then talk and ask few questions at the end of the day. That was the system. But that was totally different. And that threw me off balance. I was like, okay, this is just because it's the first day of class. The professor wants to get to know students and all of that. The second day of class was just the same thing. Students were talking, and I'm like, okay, where do I in back home in Nigeria, when we don't interrupt professors, right? When we want to ask questions, we raise our hands, this culture of raising hands and all of that. But that was not the case here. And when students interject a professor, in my mind, I'm like, you are being disrespectful. You shouldn't do this. That's not cultured, right? But they were doing it like it's normal. And that was normal for them because that's the system they were raised in. So I ended up not saying much in class because it was still new to me. I didn't know when to speak. I didn't know how to go about it and all of that. So one day that continued for a couple of classes, like maybe 3 classes. And one day I saw an email. The professor emailed me and said, hey, Blessing, I noticed you've not been talking in class. And I understand that some people could be really dominating in terms of conversation. They might be dominating the conversation, but anytime you want to speak, just let me know. You can raise your hands or let me know so that I can give you the opportunity to speak. That was really great. It really showed me that this professor was listening. She was being attentive, and that was great for me. And that was also encouraging. I was like, oh, so she was actually looking and studying and looking at the students to know who is talking, who is not talking, and how she can be inclusive of everyone. And after that, the next class, I prepared my notes and all of that. So when they were talking, I also chimed in, hey, this is what I got to say. So I would say that here is more like a discussion-based, conversation-based, but back home, it's more like a lecture style kind of teaching. Yes. And
It's interesting.
I wouldn't say none of them is bad, right? It just has to do with the way the system is structured.
Yeah. No, definitely, I understand it, especially from the side of the teacher. So I teach Sunday school at church, and when I've taught Sunday school in Zimbabwe, the kids are listening. I'm speaking. If somebody has to say something, they raise their hands. But here, even the kids as young as 5, you're teaching there, and they're just shouting. No, the angels don't. They're men and boys.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but yeah, it's great. Thanks for sharing that, because I don't have that experience of being a student here in the US. When we started, you're talking about coming from church. What's one thing the Lord has been teaching you, or maybe you've just been reading in the Bible that's been encouraging to you?
Great. So one of the things the Lord has been teaching me is the need for me to rely on Him. One of my favorite scripture is Jeremiah 29:11 that talked about how God knows the thought He has for me. It's the thought of good and not of evil. And He said that He will bring all my expectation to, a glorious end. And, sometimes when I pass through a rough path, because life is not a bed of roses for sure.
Really? I thought when you come to the US, life is a bed of roses.
Oh my God. No way. No way. So, that's what people back home would think until they get here, and they would know that dollars does not grow on a tree, right? Or you can pick dollar on the street of US, you need to work for it, right? And then the PhD program is a really rigorous program. There are days you are high, there are days you're low, and there are other things that makes up life other than being a PhD student. So in all of this, when I'm down, this scripture is always an anchor for me, knowing that God has a plan for me, knowing that I am here in the US not by accident. It's part of God's plan. So whenever I'm down, whenever I don't feel, this high moment, this scripture is always my anchor. When I remember that He has a plan for me, and this plan that He has for me, it's a good plan. It's a glorious plan. It's of good. It's not of evil. So it doesn't matter what the enemy would say. It doesn't matter what the enemy would whisper in my ears and say, hey, your family is back home. You're the only one here. Do you think you can succeed? Do you think you can do this? Then I will tell the devil, I don't think so, because I'm not the one doing it. It is Christ who lives in me that is doing all of the things I am doing. So that has been my anchor, and that has been really encouraging to me.
Amen. Thank you for sharing. I think that's all I wanted us to discuss. I don't know if you have anything that maybe you might just want to add.
So for students who really want to know much more about application, who wants to know about applying to schools in the US, I actually run workshops or seminars on that. So we have, like a few months ago, I had a virtual seminar where we have different students from different countries who were planning to apply to schools in the US. So what I do basically is give them step-by-step process of how they can go about applying to schools in the US. And then I have another section where I talk basically about assistantships, how you can get assistantships to school. So if it's something you're interested in doing, you can contact Levi. I think he will be in the best position to arrange such workshop.
Awesome. This is good stuff. Yes. I didn't know that you do that. I think I might have seen something on Facebook. No, but that was I don't think that was for your workshop. But I remember seeing something. something else on Facebook you were working
Yeah,
on.
the one you saw on Facebook was on public speaking. I do public
Okay.
speaking workshops, yes. But
Okay.
this
Okay.
one, yeah, I do public speaking workshop because I teach public speaking. So I have student organizations invite me to do public speaking workshop for them or seminar. And then the one I just told you now is an internal stuff. So I don't broadcast it to, but if people are willing to invite me to come and talk about these things, I don't mind because I want people to be here, right?
Nice, nice. Well, that's a good thing at teaching about public speaking, because who knows, maybe the next person will become the president of the United States. And they'll be like, I was taught public speaking by Blessing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta think big. You gotta think big. Yeah, because those guys, they do go through the public speaking lessons. And maybe for a few people like Barack Obama, who's like, I think Barack Obama was more the natural guy, I think. But many of the people, they do learn how to do public speaking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If some kid in Nigeria were to, listen to you, or not even Nigeria, in Tanzania, Kenya, and, they watch your video, what word of encouragement do you have for them?
Yes. First of all, I want to tell them that the admission process could be really tedious. It could be really tedious, right? But don't give up. Don't give up. Even when you apply and schools turn your application down and they tell you, oh, we don't think that you're qualified to be in this program, or we are sorry, we cannot give you admission. That is not a no. Keep pushing, keep applying, because one day you're definitely going to get in to one of the schools here in the US. And then for those who are already here, I want to tell you that sometimes in this program, it could be your master's program or PhD program, you might have this imposter syndrome. You might start feeling, am I really worthy to be in this program? Am I really fit? Did I really get into this program because I merit to be in this program? I want to tell you, when you start feeling that, kind of condition or mood, I want you to tell yourself that you are in that program because you are one of the best students. You did not get there by mistake at all. I also want to tell you that you're smart, you're intelligent, you're brilliant, more than you can even imagine. So do not give up, and you will definitely finish strong.
Those are big words. Those are big words.